Doesn't this make it all the easier for them to put all the responsibility on the woman? But these questions are, of course, must be driven to the margin. Truth stumbles in the public square. And because it does, the God of justice who comes to free his people from oppression speaks to us through the prophet Isaiah in this section of the book of Isaiah where he speaks of the suffering servant, the Lamb. God says, build up, prepare the way, remove the stumbling blocks from my people's paths. Remove the stumbling blocks. This reminds us, as our Holy Father Pope Benedict is about to make his first visit to the United States this April, of the first visit that his predecessor made, John Paul II, in 1979, when Roe versus Wade was 6 years young. And there, you'll recall, at Mass with the Washington Monument in the background as he spoke, the Pope said, when innocent life is threatened, we will stand up and defend it. To be silent when innocent life is taken is to assent to its being taken. And so he said that we should stand up. And the psalmist echoes this morning in the readings when we hear the words, I announced your justice in the vast assembly. I did not restrain my lips. I did not pretend that I could justify the taking of innocent life. What we need to speak with our lips is the gospel of life. That gospel is compressed in the words of the book of Revelation. The Lamb who was slain will lead them to springs of life-giving water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. To springs of life-giving water that wash away the guilt for every sin, if one simply presents oneself sincerely to be cleansed. And then God, in that cleansing, will wipe away the tears that flow and should flow for what we have done wrong. And that also, wiping away the tears, opens the eyes to a vision of a new future, that only God can give, a future that is called hope. And I draw your attention again to the words of the prophet Isaiah, which I must confess I can't recall hearing before. But in thinking of this homily, I came across them. The same description of the suffering servant. The children whom you had lost, shall yet say to you, make room for me to live here. Isaiah is speaking of the exile and the destruction of the city of Jerusalem and of the whole Jewish nation, that the children that you have lost, there'll still be room for them. I will make room for them anew. But couldn't this apply to our situation in the post-Roe era? That those women and men who have lost children, that the Lord will yet make room for them, and make room for them in a new future. You shall ask yourself, the prophet goes on, who has borne me these? I was left all alone. Where, then, do these come from? A miracle. I was all alone, and now I see my children returning. It is God who can give the children back, because he is the God of life and the God of the future, not the God who chains us to the past of our weakness and sin. I was left all alone. Those words really pose for us, don't they, the real choice that Roe leaves us with. Roe leaves the woman all alone. It's her choice, taken, if she wishes, in complete privacy, with no accountability, and she makes the choice, goes through with it, and can receive little or no support. But fundamentally, she's left alone with her choice. The alternative is the choice of the gospel of life, the choice for life. And that gospel imposes a responsibility on all those who, as St. Paul tells us this morning, are called to be holy, namely you and me. That we need to create, as best we can, as humbly as we can, support for a woman in this difficult situation, to support her and surround her with love and hope before and after giving birth. In a word, what we need to do as being called to holiness is to invite all, but particularly women who find themselves in this difficult situation, to invite them to the wedding feast of the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world.
On the 22nd day of January 1973, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in the Roe v. Wade decision that the American woman had a constitutional right to an abortion. With the stroke of a pen, an entire class of Americans were denied their humanity. A new definition of right to privacy turned the once protected unborn child into a product of conception, subject to its mother's termination during any stage of the pregnancy. Organizations such as Planned Parenthood, who once regarded abortion as the killing of a baby, became themselves wholesale killing machines and slick promoters of abortion. Outraged Americans from across the nation joined forces in an effort to educate the public about the reality of this new so-called right to privacy. Confident that the truth was on their side, they set out to speak it. Yet the harder they tried, the harder the people's hearts seemed to become. As more and more Americans became directly or indirectly involved in abortion decisions, denial, encouraged by the mainstream media, spread throughout the land. Today, abortion is legal in all 50 states, many of which allow it through the 9th month of pregnancy, when the baby is killed during the birth process. In Oregon, a 15-year-old girl can receive an abortion, and her parents have no legal right to know about it. The nation which sacrificed so much to keep freedom alive, the nation which faced much of its own racial injustice, is participating in a war that has claimed the lives of more than 40 million Americans over a quarter of a century.